Hi, this is Doug with A-Twin Engineering, and today I want to go over a clever little knot I invented called the Tactical Breakaway Safety Knot. So, right off the bat, you can see I have this lanyard here with a flashlight on the end, and if I just give it some normal light tugs, nothing happens. But if I give it a really sharp tug, observe. Pretty cool, right? See how it broke in a tactical manner there, as opposed to like a strategic manner, logistical manner. So let me put this knot back together and I'll show you how it can also break under a slow, steady force as well. Okay, the knot's back together, so if I just pull it really hard, it also breaks. So this knot was inspired by plastic breakaway safety clasps like this that are used for keys, knives, flashlights, badges, whatever. And I guess the idea is to prevent getting choked in a fight or sucked into a machine or something like that. Although I must say, if you're getting choked by your own lanyard, then you probably made some poor choices in life. So the first time I even saw the idea of a breakaway lanyard was in early 2011 when my friend Mike bought this flashlight, and it just came with one of these plastic breakaway clasps. And I saw that, I thought it was a really cool idea, and I became obsessed with figuring out how I could reproduce that with just a knot. This is one of those things, I wanted to invent it myself. I wanted to make sure I was the first one to do it. So I Googled, I went on YouTube, I was doing all kinds of terms, trying to figure out if somebody else came up with a knot, and I didn't find anything. So great, I had like free reign to come up with an original idea. So that was in early 2011. Now that I make this video many years later, in 2020, I do see that there's 2 videos on YouTube at least showing kind of the basic idea that I'm about to show you, but they don't go into nearly as much depth. So I'm going to show you some practical uses for this knot. Well, mainly the lanyard case. I'm also going to show you how the force requirements on this knot and some variations which they don't go over. And not to hate on these other videos, but they don't go into detail about how to tie the knot, the particulars of it, and in fact they make a few slight errors as well. So this video is just going to be a more in-depth, comprehensive, useful tutorial on this knot, hopefully. Yeah, but first I'm going to go over the variation on this knot that I use for this neck lanyard that I showed at the beginning of the video. And if you have any other ideas of like how this knot could be used in real life, then please leave a comment below. But really, the neck lanyard is the only case that I've been able to think of. And I will say I don't wear things around my neck, so it's not useful to me personally, but it's just a cool knot. So that's why I'm making the video. Okay, so I still have my lanyard broken from the beginning of the video. And so you can see one of the loose ends is just a piece of paracord, and I will say this knot only really works with paracord, or like it might work with other kinds of synthetic ropes, but see a link in the description for the paracord I use, 550 pound test, and it's really just at the end, one end is just a melted piece of paracord. Then the other end is a double overhand slip knot, or noose, or poacher's snare, or it has a lot of different names, but very common knot. I will say all the individual knots that I'm going to go over in this video, just please see links in the description. It's not going to go into detail about the individual knots in this knot system. I think animations and step-by-step are better for that kind of thing. Yeah, but this, so you can see the poacher's snare has that tiny little circle that's left where it broke away. So to retie this knot, I'm going to take a marlin spike. you can see link in the description for the one I'm using here. If you don't have one, I've used a thermometer, like a like a turkey thermometer before too. So you can see here, I just widened the hole a bit, right? Remember, this is a slip knot, so a loop that you can expand and contract. Now I'm going to take the other end and I'm just going to fold it. And when I fold it, you can see it creates this little like swell on the end, like a little kink that's wider than the paracord itself, right? Because the bend in the material forces material out to the sides, just like you kink a hose. So I'm going to put that bend through the poacher, through the double overhand noose. Let's just call it the noose. And I'm going to tighten it really as much as I can with my hands. So we're left with something that looks like that. Now I'm going to take my marlin spike and put it through the bend and pull until the black melted part of the paracord gets to the end, gets right up against the noose. So you can see that there. Now I'm going to pull on the loose end until I create that swell. So you can see the knot is yeah, almost ready here. I'm going to tighten it one last time. So you tighten this knot 3 times. The initial time you put it through, tighten it. Then you pull until you get the melted end up against the noose. You tighten it again, and then you pull it through until the swell goes up against the noose. So yeah, this is the final appearance of the knot. Looks pretty cool. Now you may have noticed I have put 2 of these knots side by side on the lanyard. So why is that? Well, one reason is that you want the lanyard to have a good opportunity for breaking. So to do that, I mean, I could put even more knots on here, but 2 is enough. And for example, if I only had 1 knot on this lanyard, and let's say I was getting sucked into a machine and the knot was against my neck, it turns out that this really increases the breaking force required because the knot is getting like sandwiched up against your neck. And yeah, I'll do some force tests to prove that later. So having the 2 knots there just gives it more of an opportunity to break at that breaking point. And also having the 2 knots here proves that this knot does have a specific breaking point. So how does it do that? Well, when I ripped this off my neck, only one of the knots broke, right? Whichever knot had the exact structure that made it a slightly bit weaker than the other knot. But what's interesting is that the other knot is fully intact. It's not like it's halfway loosened or broken now. So this knot has a very specific point, whatever it is exactly. It's going to change slightly based on the paracord, how tight you make it, maybe humidity, temperature, who knows. But whatever the point is for the specific way you tied it, that's going to be, it's all or nothing. – which makes it a very cool property of a knot, if I may say. All right, so let's do some force tests on this baby. So first I'll just do the vanilla kind of lanyard I have tied here. So let's do a force test of what I did at the beginning of the video. See how hard you have to pull. I have this luggage weight thing made by Samsonite. So you'll just see how it works real quick here. All right, here we go. So, looks like that was about 35 pounds of force to rip this thing off my neck. So let's compare that to the force needed just to break the knot alone. So when it's not in the lanyard configuration. So to help with that, I have some just pre-tied strings here. One thing you'll notice is I have this extra loop. This is called a butterfly loop, which is a cool knot on its own. This is not part of the knot system per se. This is just so I can, to help me with the force tests. So disregard the butterfly loop. Nonetheless, it's the link is in the description. It's a cool knot because you don't need access to any loose end of the rope. You can tie it in the middle of a rope. So let me get this knot set up here. Okay, again, this knot here is what I use on the lanyard. This is to me the best variation of the knot. Now remember, the lanyard broke at about 35 pounds. So let's see what the knot itself, just with the direct linear force, breaks at. What do you think? I think it's going to be less. I mean, I know what it is, but... All right, here we go. All right, so looks like about 30 pounds there. And I will say, when I was testing this, most of the time it breaks around 25 pounds. Maybe I was like really trying to flex for the camera or something and making this knot really tight. But and also keep in mind, this thing is just a luggage weight. It's not like NASA certified or anything. So nonetheless, it shows major differences. So with the neck lanyard, remember it was a 35 pound breaking point. And with this, it's 25 pounds to 30 pounds. In fact, if you tie the knot really loosely, it's more like 20 pounds. So let's say in the 20 pounds to 30 pound range. But yeah, I tied it real tight, and 30 pounds. But it's less than the force required to break the lanyard. Well, why is that? Well, the lanyard has 2 strings, so it's effectively kind of doubling the strength of the knot in some way. There's probably some formula involved here that I don't know, but so it's not like it's doubling the breaking strength, but you can imagine each knot has an extra little bit of support behind it from the other knot. So it doesn't add up in like a linear kind of way, but yeah, that's why the neck lanyard, it has a higher breaking point than the knot by itself. So I'm sure some mathematicians can figure it out for me. Yeah, and going back to what I said about like, what if the reason I have 2 knots on my lanyard is because you want to avoid one knot, because then it could get kind of bound up against your neck. So let's do a force test to prove how much more force you would need to break that knot. Okay, so the basic vanilla variation of this knot, I have it retied. I'm gonna put it around my neck. Yeah, and the knot is right in the nape of my neck now. Oh, honestly, I can't even break it. This thing got up to 65 pounds and it's still not breaking. So the same knot that it, in a linear kind of way, will break at like 20 to 30 pounds, or in a configuration on a lanyard with 2 knots, it'll break at 35 pounds or whatever. Let's say probably 30 to 40 pounds. The same knot, just because it's bound against my skin, I don't even want to pull much harder on this thing. This thing maxes out at 80, and it's kind of delicate, so I don't want to put it too much too much punishment. Yeah, that same knot is not breaking, so that would be a dangerous configuration to have for a lanyard, to rely on one knot if you're getting sucked into a machine or getting the life choked out of you. So, hence the reason for the 2 knots. Now, I promised some minor variations on this knot that you can try also, that will both raise and lower the breaking strength. So for these, I'm just going to do the basic linear break test. So the one variation, this will increase the breaking point of the knot. And how you do this, so instead of just bending the loose end and threading it through the noose, I tied a fixed loop on the other end. So in this case, I used a bowline knot. But really, you can use any fixed loop, like Honda knot, whatever. So the same idea. Instead of putting the bend through the noose, you're just putting the fixed loop through the noose. So in this case, we only have to tighten it twice, not 3 times. So tighten it once, just to get the fixed loop through the noose. And then pull it through until the swell reaches the noose, then tighten it again. All right, let's see what this knot breaks at. Here we go. All right, so looks like we got 35 pounds. So remember, the basic variation, the vanilla variation, that's a 20 to 30 pound breakage. This is breaking at 35 pounds, which is the same amount of force required to break the lanyard. So this knot by itself with linear force, it has a higher breaking point. Now, it's interesting to think why that is. So why does a fixed loop have a higher breaking point than a bend? Well, by analogy, you can kind of think of like 2 people trying to go through a door at the same time, right? When you're putting a bend through the noose, you're kind of one person is going through the door first, and then the other person goes through. With the loop, you're trying to cram 2 people through the door at the same time. So that's why it takes a higher breaking strength. So depending on your application for this knot, you may want that. You may want to put a fixed loop on the end. Personally, for me, with testing with the lanyard, it's a bit too high of a breaking point for comfort if you're relying on this for safety. But yeah, there might be other applications for it. So that's one variation of this knot that'll raise the breaking point. There's another variation of this knot which will lower the breaking point. Now to do that, we tie a noose, the double overhand noose, whatever, snare knot on one end, but it's like a reverse noose. So the dynamic part of the cord, so the part that slides through the knot, we flip-flop that. So this is the noose that I've been using.
throughout this whole video so far. So you can see the bead of paracord is nestled right up against the knot there. And that's the static part. With this knot with this variation I'm about to show you, the static part is, it's hard to describe, but the static part is this longer part here. And the dynamic part, the part that slides through the noose, is this shorter piece here. So let me just get the knot tied, and I'll try to explain how this works. All right, knot is tied. Let's give it a force test. Here we go. I barely had to pull it at all. You can see it broke at about 5 pounds. And I've had this break at about 5 to 10 pounds in personal testing. Now, why did it break at such a lower point? Well, it's because when you're pulling on this end, instead of tightening the knot further, which is what your classical noose, double overhand noose does, right? If you pull on it, the knot is actually getting tighter. Instead of that, because I have the ends reversed, it's actually pulling the knot, it's loosening the knot. So every time you pull on the knot, it's loosening it. That's why it's like, so go back to that analogy of, people trying to get through a door. It's like the door is opening at the same time as people are trying to get through it. It's like a sliding glass door. All right. It's like an automatic door. And it turns out, even if you put a fixed loop on the other end, it doesn't really matter. The braking force is pretty much the same. Like the main weakness of this knot is the fact that under tension, it's kind of untying itself. So personally, for practical application, that last variation of the knot isn't probably too useful, but hey, I figured I'd show it just for the sake of completeness. So that's about it. If you can think of any other variations on this knot that I could try, that you want me to do a force test on, if you can think of any practical application for this knot, I would love to hear it. Please leave a comment. Otherwise, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.